A soft contrast reveals itself long before any conversation begins. Observers often note how life in Australia carries a kind of open-air spaciousness, while the UK seems shaped by centuries of accumulated layers of history, architecture, etiquette, and habit. The difference is not framed as better or worse, but as an unexpected shift in atmosphere, the kind that subtly alters mood and movement. For many North Americans and Australians, the initial reaction is a feeling of being pulled from two different emotional climates, one defined by ease and sunlight, the other by structure and ritual. This contrast becomes the starting point for countless reflections on why so many people quietly lean toward the Australian side. What stands out first is often the sheer physical environment. Australia's cities stretch outward rather than upward, breathing with wide streets, bright skies, and an unmistakable sense of openness. The UK, by comparison, folds everything into a dense mosaic, terraced houses pressed together, narrow lanes weaving through towns, and a sky that often settles into muted tones. Australians frequently observe that this spatial difference affects more than just scenery. It shifts internal pacing. In Australia, a slower, warmer rhythm tends to emerge naturally, encouraged by climate and geography. In the UK, the rhythm gains a kind of compact urgency, shaped by older infrastructures and colder weather that nudges people toward routines built for efficiency rather than leisure. The sensory contrast continues in the emotional atmosphere of public life. Crowds in Australia tend to move with an unhurried flow, shaped by a cultural emphasis on informality and approachability. In the UK, interactions often carry a polite reserve, measured, contained, respectfully distant. Many Australians describe how this British restraint can feel both refined and emotionally quiet, while the Australian mode leans toward warmth that emerges without ceremony. Even simple moments, such as ordering a coffee or entering a shop, highlight these differences, one side favouring casual conversation, the other preferring understated exchanges. As observers dig deeper, they begin noticing how everyday habits reflect wider cultural priorities. Australian life places unusual value on balance: work that leaves room for rest, rest that leaves room for nature, nature that remains within reach even in major cities. The UK's habits, shaped by longer work traditions and a more structured social hierarchy, can feel more organised but also more demanding. Many Australians note how the British commitment to schedules and protocols subtly influences mood, creating a sense of ongoing obligation. While Australia's cultural rhythm encourages a gentler relationship with time, public settings reveal these contrasts in symbolic ways. Parks in Australia often feel like extensions of daily life, places where families gather after work, where people wander barefoot across grass still warm from the afternoon sun. Parks in the UK, while beautiful in their own right, often carry a preserved, curated quality, shaped by historical design rather than lived-in spontaneity. Even the weather becomes a cultural force. Long British winters encourage indoor routines and social circles built around enclosed spaces, while Australia's climate pushes life outward onto verandas, beaches, and public walkways, where social energy moves more freely. This outward flow shapes not only lifestyle but also emotional expectation. Many Australians and North Americans observe that Australia's climate fosters a kind of everyday optimism, subtle but consistent. Sunlight lingers, evenings stretch, and the line between work and leisure becomes more permeable. In the UK, weather often imposes a quieter introspection, pressing daily life into smaller interior spaces. This shift influences how conversations unfold, how communities gather, and how individuals interpret the rhythm of a week. Where Australian environments naturally encourage communal warmth, British landscapes cultivate steadiness, resilience, and routine qualities admirable, yet markedly different. These differences deepen in the workplace. Observers often remark that Australian work culture maintains a practical, egalitarian tone. Hierarchies exist, but they are softened by informality. Supervisors speak casually with employees, and expectations lean toward efficiency rather than formality. In the UK, workplace norms frequently reflect longer-standing traditions, subtly reinforcing titles, roles, and procedures. Many Australians describe encountering a sense of protocol in British offices that feels more pronounced, as though every task passes through an inherited framework. This structure brings clarity, but can also feel restrictive compared to Australia's lighter, more flexible environment. Common interactions reinforce these impressions. In Australia, greetings between strangers often carry a relaxed candour, and small talk appears effortlessly, even in brief encounters. In the UK, politeness is expressed through courtesy and restraint, warm in intention, but delicate in delivery. Cueing habits, conversational pauses, and indirect phrasing all point to a culture that values consideration through subtlety. For Australians accustomed to more forthright exchanges, this British communication style can feel refined yet emotionally opaque, creating a sense of distance that is not unfriendly but carefully measured. Lifestyle expectations further widen the gap. Weekend culture in Australia often revolves around outdoor rituals, barbecues, coastal drives, afternoons by the water. These moments are not special events, but extensions of everyday life, shaped by weather that reliably allows them. In the UK, weather patterns shift plans constantly, and gatherings take on a different kind of coziness. Pubs filled with soft conversation, living rooms warmed by lamps and tea. Many Australians admire this British sense of comfort, yet still feel drawn to the freedom and spontaneity that their own climate affords. Even mobility patterns illustrate contrasting values. Australian cities, with their wide roads and expansive suburbs, create lifestyles anchored in personal spaceyards, porches, cars, and open horizons. The UK's older urban design encourages walkability and compact living, bringing people physically closer, but often within environments shaped by history rather than space. Observers note how this proximity can feel charming yet confining, while Australia's openness provides a subtle psychological lift that becomes most noticeable only after leaving over time. These contrasts shape deeper reflections on emotional climate. Many Australians and North Americans note that Australia's cultural emphasis on balance instills a sense of steady contentment. Life feels spacious, both physically and mentally, and this spaciousness often becomes the element most missed after leaving. In the UK, the cultural landscape leans toward continuity, tradition, and endurance, values that bring stability but also a certain weight. Days accumulate within a framework shaped by centuries, and while this creates richness, it can also create a subtle sense of compression felt by those accustomed to broader horizons. Typical situations highlight these divergent emotional textures. In Australian neighbourhoods, evenings commonly unfold with windows open, voices drifting into warm air, and a sense of social permeability that encourages easy connection. In the UK, the atmosphere shifts toward enclosed comfort, with homes forming private retreats from weather and routine. These patterns influence how relationships form. In Australia, proximity to outdoor life naturally expands social circles. In the UK, bonds grow in more curated, intentional ways, built through scheduled gatherings rather than spontaneous encounters. Observers often reflect on how these environmental and cultural cues influence mindset. Many Australians find that the combination of sunlight, space, and informality cultivates a relaxed worldview, one that prioritizes personal time and emotional ease. After living in the UK, they frequently describe a newfound appreciation for Australia's sense of equilibrium, noticing how quickly the British pace encourages oversight of small freedoms. The UK, with its structured social expectations and historical weight, shapes a mindset grounded in continuity and responsibility. Australia, meanwhile, encourages a quieter confidence that life can be navigated without constant pressure. These reflections lead to a broader understanding. People often prefer life in Australia not because it is objectively better, but because it aligns with a human desire for breathing room. The climate, the cultural informality, and the open landscapes combine to create an atmosphere that feels emotionally generous. For many, the difference becomes clear only after leaving, when the absence of brightness and space creates a subtle longing they didn't expect. The UK's strengths remain undeniable, yet its charm lies in depth rather than expansiveness, in tradition rather than openness, in refinement rather than ease. In the end, the preference often comes down to emotional resonance. Australia offers a sense of everyday lightness that becomes embedded in routine, shaping mood and outlook. The UK offers a richness rooted in heritage and structure, shaping identity through continuity. When people choose Australia, they often choose the feeling of movement without heaviness, of life guided by warmth rather than weathered restraint. And when they look back, the memory that lingers is not any single scene, but the overall sensation of living in a place where the world feels just a little wider, the days a little brighter, and the air a little less weighted by time. Make sure to subscribe, and the next videos will be more interesting.